Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Concordia's Matthew Swift and General Laura J. Richardson, Commander of the U.S. Southern Command, to lead a discussion on regional stability, followed by our esteemed panel.
Good afternoon. Well, everyone, welcome. Welcome back from the lunch session. I hope everyone is surviving the rain. I thought it might have come a little later, but right before this. But this is a very, very important session and conversation to have at this 2024 Concordia America Summit. And before we go to the broader strategic dialogue, a format that Nick and I designed originally because we wanted people to be a little more off the cuff. We wanted less prepared remarks and more of that interaction between leaders to demonstrate to our community and our audience really some of the potential synergies and collaboration that can come from a conversation like this. And I cannot imagine a better person to talk to for this session as we kick things off than General Laura Richardson. It is an honor to have you back at this table, and thank you so much for coming back to Concordia.
Thank you, Matt. It's good to be here.
I want to start in a very, very high level with you, and I do want to ask you about your recent trip to Guatemala. As I understand, it was a very busy one, but first, I found especially a lot of the private sector audience are not that familiar with Southcom. And so I wanted to ask you to give a brief overview of what Southcom is and exactly what your mandate is as its commander.
So thank you for that. Very honored to be the United States Southern Command commander. The Department of Defense divides the globe into 6 geographic areas, and so there are 6 commanders dedicated to work with the militaries and public security forces for the countries in the region, all based in human rights, the rule of law, the professionalization of the forces. We do security cooperation, we do exercises, training, foreign military sales for equipment, but you know, I call it's part of the instruments of national power that a country has. And so I use the acronym of DIME, diplomacy, information, military, and economics. I'm the M part of the DIME for the United States. However, with the military part of that, it's not just about hard power. It's about soft power, too. And some of the soft power initiatives that we have in terms of the training, the professional military education, the medical exercises that we get to do, bringing the United States naval ship, the Comfort, which is the big white hospital ship, into the region. We're really excited about bringing the Comfort in. We did that last year. We'll do that again next year. 152 days it'll be in the region. And we will bring medical care, free medical care, to the countries within the region, as well as do all kinds of exchanges, going into the hospitals and clinics, fixing broke equipment in hospitals, x-ray machines, MRI machines, those sorts of things. We'll do tabletop exercises with first responders. It's a whole myriad of things that we get to do. We also mobilize part of our NGOs, the non-governmental organizations that are very prevalent in the Miami area and in South Florida, also to contribute and be a part of that. So I would say that we run a really large spectrum of security cooperation and partnership. And we call that the Partnership of the Americas, and very proud to do that at U.S. Southern Command.
Well, let's talk about this for a second, because I think from a military perspective, our ability to project force, a lot of times people go straight to that word force, and instead, really, so much of it is the ability to project that soft power that is what the taxpayers' investment is going to for this infrastructure. Over the last 3 years, what are some of the biggest things you've learned as you've traveled Latin America and the Caribbean in this role?
So I would say in terms of just traveling and being able to meet with leaders in the region, understanding the security challenges, because I am looking at it through a security lens, but then also understanding all the other impacts. I would say that COVID has had quite a big impact on economies in the countries. The GDP decline during that time, and then the digging out of the hole of that has had an impact economically on the countries. And so when you combine that with transnational criminal organizations and the not just the drug trafficking, but the human trafficking, which has become almost just as profitable, the illegal mining, the illegal logging, there are a lot of resources in this region. Some of our strategic adversaries, as I call it, or strategic competitors, have come to realize that. And some of that transnational criminal organizations of stealing that and exploiting that has become very, very prevalent. So the insecurity and instability, I believe, just opens the door for other larger strategic competitors to come in and take advantage of that.
So let's on the strategic competitors standpoint, could you give us a bit of a status report from your time from when you started to today on how things are in terms of that? Obviously, we hear a great deal about the role of China in the region, so talk a little bit about, put it in a little bit of a historical perspective for everyone on your assessment of the current state of affairs in Latin America and the Caribbean.
And I think that in U.S. Southern Command, because of the ability to be able to travel, work with our partners, understand firsthand, listening to them, seeing the challenges firsthand in the countries. But in terms of the United States military, in our national defense strategy, the number one pacing challenge for us is the People's Republic of China. And that's not a secret. And so as I travel around, and I'm able to, I think from the perspective of U.S. Southern Command, we're able to see firsthand in terms of what the Belt and Road Initiative has done. 22 of 31 countries in the region have signed on to the Belt and Road Initiative. Not that that is a bad thing, but it's not the first time in this hemisphere. There are other regions of the world that have had the Belt and Road Initiative. The debt trap loans, the shoddy projects, the cost overruns, things that projects that were supposed to fix disasters, actually making things worse. And so that's not the case in all of them, but when you look at all the investment, it looks to be investment, is a lot of it in the critical infrastructure of the countries. And so as I place these things, all the deep water ports, the 5G, the safe city, smart city technology, space, why do we have the most PRC space enabling infrastructure in this region of the world as compared to any other? And you just start mapping that out and putting it all together, and it makes you wonder why. Why, with a country that has had the largest buildup in conventional and nuclear forces since World War II, that they're spreading their tentacles across the globe, looking to be investing in critical infrastructure across the region and in these countries.
So I think that's an important point, though, to say, are we offering, we meaning the United States, are we offering a reasonable, strong alternative to some of these things that are coming from, for instance, China, as you said?
And I would say Team USA can do a lot better in terms of doing that. And I would say that in terms of the critical infrastructure, are we competing on the tenders as countries put out tenders for these projects? Are we in the competition? You got to be on the field, you got to have your jersey on, and you got to be competing. And if you're not there and you're not competing on that, and that's why I've expanded the aperture. That's why I'm speaking to you today. That's why I participate when there are no Western Hemisphere speakers. That's one of my first questions I ask. Is there another Western Hemisphere speaker? And if there's not, then I try to make it there so I can get the word out. We have got to compete. we've got to provide countries other alternatives other than what is the alternative that's currently there and has been there for the last several years.
Talk a little bit about team democracy.
So team democracy, I will say that in our national defense strategy, our Secretary of Defense, Austin, uses the term integrated deterrence. And integrated deterrence is two words that can mean many different things to different people. I look at it like a mesh network of team members working together against malign activity. And so instead of trying to explain that, like I just had to explain it, and hopefully I did that fairly clearly, is I just use team democracy. If you want to be on team democracy and you want to fight for democracy, and you're part of the 28 like-minded nations that are in this hemisphere, then that's what we're about, team democracy.
And if you don't mind, and I realize this might not be something you can comment too specifically on, but what would you want to see more from government, and what would you want to see more from business in terms of that team democracy, that ecosystem, the soft power? What are you looking for from different sectors?
Well, I think it's you've got to be there and you got to compete. I mean, what I worry about in terms of the People's Republic of China is the state-owned enterprises. These are companies that are competing on tenders, that have very large businesses, but they are state-owned enterprises. They are controlled by the government. The government tells them what to do. And as you have investment, again, in deep water ports, space, 5G, safe city, smart city technology, which really is looked at, in my opinion, as population surveillance technology. And so how do you protect yourselves against that? Right? And you have to have alternatives. And so we do a lot of education and informing the countries that we work with, the sovereign countries. They have to make their own decisions, but we can help them be informed. It's not a secret, some of the things that are happening right now with data and the stealing of data. As numerous, our FBI Director Ray and our Five Eyes intelligence chiefs talked about, on the open news in terms about the stealing of data and how we have to be concerned about that. And so education and informing and being aware of the pitfalls that are out there. But there have to be alternatives, right? And so as I speak to different groups and have to, in terms of competing, be there in the critical infrastructure, it matters the branding that we use. In terms of the branding, we have a lot of U.S. companies that are in the region, in many different countries. In Colombia, for example, over 800 U.S. companies. In Panama, over 200 companies. In Costa Rica, over 250 U.S. companies. Who knew that there are that many companies? But we have to start talking about what U.S. quality investment is. What does U.S. quality investment bring? We don't bring our own workers to the countries. We hire host nation workers. We employ, we invest in the community. Anti-corruption measures, environmental standards, labor standards, diversification of the workforce, generally adopt a school, a clinic, a hospital, all kinds of great things, but we don't talk about it. We don't brag about it. And we need to do better at our own branding.
How do you, operating within the massive infrastructure that is the U.S. military, when you have Israel, you have Ukraine, you have Taiwan, how do you, within that larger system, ensure that people are paying attention to Latin America and the Caribbean? I think one of the themes of this conference has been that it feels like the rest of the world is taking their eye off the ball as it relates to Latin America and the Caribbean. So how do you do that within the massive infrastructure that you operate in?
So I would say that in terms of, you could go back to team democracy, and that democracy matters. We see that democracy is under attack across the globe. And when like-minded democracies come together and work together, we can move mountains, and we have moved mountains. Every position matters. I watch very closely in terms of when bad things happen across the globe. How do our leaders within the hemisphere react to that? How do they either condemn or abstain or don't say anything? And so it matters. our voices matter. Individually, we're strong, but together, we're invincible. And I firmly believe that.
Well, I think one of the big conclusions that's come from this meeting, but also many of the sessions we've hosted at other summits as well, is I think we're starting to see the business community and public sector better recognize just the sheer impact that these geopolitical shifts can have on these environments much more. One of our Leadership Council members was talking about the World Bank spring meetings last week and saying there were a number of sessions being held at the IDB or the World Bank on the geopolitical situation as much as the financial situation. So I think the timing here is incredibly important. General, thank you very, very much.